Declaring elements inside a DTD is accomplished using an element declaration, and element declarations have the format of an angle bracket followed by an exclamation point and the capital word element, followed by a name and a content specification, where the name is the name of the element that you're going to be declaring, and the content specification defines what the valid contents for the element is. Elements can contain one of 4 different types of what are known as content models. There's empty content, in which the element has no child elements at all. So there's no child elements, text, nothing. It can't contain anything. A good example of this is the image tag in HTML, or the horizontal rule tag, and so forth. These tags have nothing inside them. Then there's the any content model, which is the opposite. This means that the element has no content constraints whatsoever. It can contain pretty much anything, which is what the word any obviously means. Then there's element content, which means that the element can contain the child elements that you list for the content specification, but that's it. You can't put other elements that are not inside the content specification inside that element. And then finally, there's mixed content, in which the element can contain elements and character data. So let's take a look at some examples of these different types of content models. Here, we're defining an element named miscellaneous, and the keyword any there at the end of the element declaration means that the miscellaneous element can contain anything. There's no limit on what could be inside. It could be other elements, it could be text, it could be pretty much anything. An empty element declaration would look like this. Here, we're defining an element named image, and then the keyword empty goes at the end, which means it has to be empty. There's no content inside this element. Defining character data content is used with the keyword $PC data inside parentheses. PC data means parsed character data, so in this case, the element name is allowed to have character data inside of it. Now, you might be wondering if there's a way to define an element that has a CData section in it, which is unparsed. And the answer is, remember, CData tag itself is in fact parsed. It's only the text content inside the CData section that's unparsed. So there's no way to say it's only a CData section. What you would define is the PC data, and then that indicates that the element can have parsed character data inside of it. Element content means you're saying that the element in question can have other elements inside of it, and there's a couple different ways to do this. The first is the sequence model. In this case, we have an element named CD, which contains a title and an artist tag, and it's interesting to note here that what this means is that the CD element has to have exactly one title element, and it has to have exactly one artist element, and they have to appear in that order. The title tag has to come first, and the artist has to come second. You couldn't have a CD element that had the artist first and the title second, because that would be a violation of the DTD in this case. If you wanted them to appear as a choice, you would define the element content using a choice model. And in this case, we have a dwelling element, which is using a choice model. And inside the parentheses, we have 3 different elements that are valid for the dwelling element. So inside of dwelling, you would find either an element named house, or one named apartment, or one named trailer. These elements are separated by the vertical bar characters between house and apartment, and between apartment and trailer. And what this means is that you're allowed to choose one of these elements to appear in there, and only one is allowed. Now, there is a way to specify how many of a certain element is allowed to appear, and we'll cover that in just a moment. To define mixed content, you would use the $PC data keyword with the vertical bar and any other elements that you would like to see allowed inside the element you're defining. In this example, you're defining an element named title, and the title element is allowed to have parsed character data inside of it, as well as one subtitle tag. In this case, it doesn't really matter where each one appears. You can have them in any random order. Okay, let's go back to the problem of specifying how many elements are allowed to appear inside an element that you're defining. To modify the element declaration to indicate how many elements you like to see allowed, you can use certain modifier characters to control how many elements can appear. And these characters are the question mark, plus, and star symbols. If you put a question mark next to an element name, that means that 0 or 1 of those elements can appear. It basically makes the element optional. It's either there or it's not. A plus sign means there has to be at least one of the elements, but there could be more. A star means that there could be 0 or more of the elements. For example, this element declaration defines a letter element, and inside the letter element, you can have 0 or 1 A elements because of the question mark, followed by 0 or more B elements, followed by 1 or more C elements. So the plus sign means there's got to be at least one. There could be more. Star means that there could be 0, but there could be more. And the question mark means 0 or 1. Okay, that's a quick tour of declaring elements. Next, we'll take a look at declaring attributes.